Hey writers! So for today's mini lesson, what I want to remind you is that strong fiction writers lose themselves in the story. When we lose ourselves in the story, we become the character, and that is really important. Just like in reading, when you walk in your character's shoes, in writing, you want to write words that help the reader of your work walk into your character's shoes. So we can easily walk in the character's shoes if we think of some great strategies to help bring that character to life. And one way we could do that would be to add dialogue. So I know a lot of you over the last couple of weeks have practiced dialogue with Miss Willingham or me, but that is one really easy way to find a scene in your story, in your narrative arc, that you could bring that character to life, your main character, or any of your characters. If you think about over the years, the characters that you remember, they all have really good dialogue or ways of speaking. Maybe you give your character a southern accent. Maybe it's an English accent. It's kind of hard to do through dialogue. Maybe your character speaks very forcefully, or maybe your character speaks really quickly. Those words will help us have a voice to your character. So dialogue is one thing that you can try. The other thing that you could do and envision for your story in one of your scenes is to consider those sensory details. What does your character see? What does your character hear? What does your character touch? What does your character smell or taste? And I'm going to show and demonstrate that in my narrative arc that we've been working on together as a class. The third thing I want you to consider is perspective. And what I mean by that is the point of view of your story. Point of view is the way in which the author allows you to see and hear the text. So you write in really two different perspectives. Some of you are writing in first person. That is, the words on the page are what is seen through the character's mind and eyes. A third person would be the narrator or an outsider telling the story. The majority of I see you guys writing from third person. Some of you are writing from first person. The difference here, when you are considering adding dialogue and sensory details, those differences in your point of view will change how you add dialogue and sensory details. And I'll give you an example. If you're in a first person mode, you're likely going to have that word or that pronoun I in it, like I went to the store, I spoke to the clerk and said, may I have a Slurpee? There, the author is narrating his actions. So that character is narrating from their perspective. And when you think of sensory details, it would be you really placing yourself in that character's shoes and asking, what am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I smelling? What am I tasting? What am I touching? However it fits into your story. For third person, you have to describe what that person is doing in your story, that character is doing in your story. So it might be, I watched as Mr. Hoffman entered the store. He asked a tall, thin clerk, may I have a Slurpee? So again, perspective plays a role in how you describe your scene. Most stories that you have been writing since you were in kindergarten have been third person perspective. My one suggestion to you, and I'll repeat this again, my one suggestion to you is that you only write in one of these point of views. The story becomes very confusing if you switch first and third person. So again, my suggestion to you is to only consider one of these point of views. I don't want to overwhelm you. Most of you are naturally writing in third person, which is fine. The reason I bring this up is, like I said, it impacts your dialogue and your sensory details. Because if you're describing what someone's doing, your sensory details are going to be a little bit different if you're that actual person in that story and you're writing as that person. So those are some things to consider. So let's look at my story arc. We had plotted this one out as a class. This was inspired by my son Benny being afraid of the dark as my small moment. I picked a small moment in my life of him being afraid of the dark and earning a star belly stuffed animal and that helping him to no longer be afraid of the dark, and it inspired me to write about this character Kenny. So just a review for you. Kenny, my exposition, my introduction to the story is Kenny's afraid of the dark. He's a 4-year-old boy with brown hair and brown eyes. He's tall for his age. His feet hang out of the covers. So you can kind of imagine his feet hanging out of the covers. My first event is that, or what he needs, or what is his conflict. So he needs to find a way to sleep through the night without getting scared. Event 1, Kenny sees a shadow in the window one night and screams for his mother. Event 2, Kenny's mom gives him a sound machine and he sleeps next to his bed until he falls asleep. Kenny gets scared when his house heat clicks on. Climax of the story, Kenny works hard in school and mom surprises him with a star belly stuffed animal that has a built-in nightlight. One night, Kenny hears a loud bang in his room. He wakes up and uses the star belly to see that his cat was his cat Whiskers who was making the noise. The following action of that climax, or how that resolution happens, is Kenny becomes confident and does not need his mom to sleep next to him. He uses his star belly when he becomes afraid. Kenny sleeps over his friend Mason's house. So in the next video, I'm going to pick one of these scenes and I am going to write dialogue and sensory details to help you know your character in more details. Excuse me, my son is on the recording. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.